I know they're valuable. You know, there's just something that is so sad to me about a bonsai tree. You know, they're only 12 to 16 inches tall. I mean, that's all they are. But you know, the thing about those bonsai trees is they are not 12 to 16 inches tall by design or by their DNA. Somebody just decided one day that they didn't want that tree to grow to its full potential. And so what they did is they clipped the roots of that tree, they clipped the branches, and they planted it in a very shallow pot. And when they did that, it only grew. Even after some of them 50 years, 75 years, it will never grow any taller than than the 12 to 16 inches tall. Although in its destiny, in its DNA, it was designed to be maybe 100, 150 feet tall. And that's sad to me. I mean, trees aren't made to sit on the table. Trees are made to grow outside and kids swing in them and birds nest in them and squirrels run around in them. And for you to sit down underneath with a blanket, underneath the limbs of a big tree with big branches and relax and have a picnic. That's the destiny of a tree. And although those bonsai trees, they will mature, they will never reach their potential. And that's sad to me. That is so sad. But I believe that there are too many Christians that are living like bonsais when God intended that we live like sequoias. Now in Isaiah, it tells us the story of that God wanted us to be like trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. Now some of the translators translate it as oaks, but I'm convinced that it's not oaks at all. Now, I realize that the translators probably have never heard of a sequoia because the sequoias only grow in the Sierra Nevada mountains, but those sequoias grow to be 250 feet tall. Wayne took me there for our 20th wedding anniversary, and as we stood there looking up at those trees, I was standing there with my mouth hanging open. They were so tall, so gigantic. I stood there looking and looking and looking and looking, and Wayne, he was reading the signs while I was gawking at how huge they were. While the closest limb looked like it wasn't any bigger than my arm, when in reality, that Wayne read on the sign that the diameter, not the circumference, but the diameter through that tree limb that looked about the size of my arm, instead of being the size of my arm, was actually 6 feet in the diameter of that tree. 6 feet. It was so high up that it looked little. But when you stand looking at those sequoias, you go, wow, it's so big. And see, I believe that that's what God intended for every believer, not just preachers or not just the great people that we think of, the great people of the historical or the great people like Paul in the Bible and some of the others that we look at them, we think, oh, if I could just be like them. I believe that God intended for every believer to be like a sequoia. But you know, the reality is that something seems to be missing, that too often we live like bonsais instead of sequoias. Too often we live just like this house. Somebody took the roof off so that they wouldn't have to pay taxes in Arizona. But the reality is the house is no good. It's no good without a roof. And see, there's something missing in our lives, and we ask and we think, what's missing? If God's plan, if in your DNA as a believer, God intended for you to be like the sequoia, what is missing? And I dare to say in all boldness that I am convinced that the ingredient that is missing is nothing other than Pentecost. I believe that's what's missing in our lives, that we're not doing what God has called us to do, and we're not being the giant that God destined you to be. I believe it's Pentecost.